I'm Dr. Jordin Wiggins, and this is the Pleasure Principles podcast. Join me on this journey where sex, science, and sensuality meet. Let's change the conversation around sex and pleasure together. Welcome to the Pleasure Principles podcast. Today, we have special guest, Kris Plachy. I had the pleasure of meeting her at an event in Phoenix a couple months ago. She is an advisor and mentor for female entrepreneurs on how to lead and manage their teams. And Kris really gave me some sage advice and wisdom, which we're going to tell you all about. But she stopped me in her tracks because she had this way about her, this way about leading, this way about delivering advice that I was immediately attracted to because it was feminine and it had strength. Because I know that you all listening, we struggle because we think sometimes our femininity is weak. And I wanted to bring Kris on today to talk a little bit more about that. Welcome, Kris. I'm so happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
And we might as well get right into this part because it'll lead into difficult conversations, having difficult conversations, which I want to get your perspective on. But before we do that, I was called out at this conference to talk about
Yes.
to talk about being stuck in a paradigm, stuck in a medical model, and hanging on to my degree and my ability to prescribe medication and these titles, these ego things, and how it was really holding me back from what I wanted to do. The space to write a book, the space to grow the Pleasure Collective and help women leaders with their intimacy, like something on the planet that only I can do. It's like a very niche skill that I have. And I couldn't let it go. I couldn't see a way out. And Kris, do you remember what you said to me?
I think I do. So you'll have to tell me if what I remember is what you remember. But I remember watching you talk about it and thinking, well, she's thinking like a practitioner and not as a thought leader. And that's very common for those of us who are practitioners first. And then we evolve into this point of view that we want to that becomes ultimately our purpose, our vision, our mission in the world. But the practitioner part of us has always been where our credibility lies. Right?
Yes, my value.
Yeah.
And that was exactly where I was stuck. And you told me that I didn't, because I was looking at it all or nothing thinking. And you told me that I didn't have to let that part go in the sense that I would always have it. My knowledge was always there, and I could reframe my approach and look at it like retirement. And I don't know if you use the word retirement or the room, someone used the word retirement. I don't think that was you, but just the reframe of allowing that to be a part of me and the practitioner part to be a part of me, but sort of stepping into this new level as a thought leader. And it wasn't like I was abandoning my patients or jumping ship or throwing away something that I'd worked the last, 15 years for. And it really landed for me, landed so much that I will be retiring March
Mhm.
31st.
Holy smokes.
I know. And it feels so amazing and light and still a little scary, but
Of course, yeah. If it wasn't a
yeah,
little scary, we'd have to question that too, right? Like
yes,
I think a little tinge of fear is good news. It means we're releasing something that matters and also a little tentative about what's to come, but I think that's part of entrepreneurialism and growth anyway. So it's all good.
definitely.
Yeah.
And do you see this? Because I see this in intimacy. So do you see this in leadership where a little fear, we use that as an excuse to mean it's wrong or it's not right for
Yeah,
us or to not take action? Do you see that?
absolutely. And to stay small, especially in leadership, to stay small and a little bit helpless to your circumstance. Fear is a funny little thing, right? It can feel so real and it can feel so important and meaningful, and it isn't always.
No. Yeah, that's do it scared or do it a little scared has
Yeah.
always been my motto. I was really stuck on this one, but
Mm. Well, there you
thanks to that,
are.
yes, and thanks to that
Woohoo!
great conversation. So, and so many good things from and even not being able to see all the steps
Mhm.
because I still don't have all the steps figured out.
No, but it's so interesting. So many women that I do work with actually who are, sort of that solopreneur growth pattern, whatever that in fact, I was just before this call, I was talking to a client who's an ENT, right? And she's made some very significant decisions in her own practice. Um, and that you can't allow the creativity and the wisdom and whatever it is that is dying for you to tap into, you can't get there if you're busy being afraid of what you'll lose.
Mm,
And I think your story is a great one, that you've built an incredible career, and that doesn't mean it's over. It means you take all the best parts of what you've already learned and you bring them with you. And then there will be parts of what you've learned and what you've done that you don't need to bring with you. They're not part of the next part of your journey. And that's good news, I think, for you. And releasing it creates now all this space for more ways that you're going to make a difference for the woman and the women that you support.
yes, and it feels so light and so aligned, which with all this space, I'm going to write another book and I need to make some changes with the team and support that I have. So then it
Mhm.
brings up some more issues that you can help us with.
Well, and that's
So,
such a good one too, because when you stay in practitioner, you keep doing and you don't allow support to come in to help you either.
yeah, and sometimes we even allow the support and then we cut it off or like we undermine it because
Mhm.
we are such a doer.
Yes. And a little perfectionist controlling, but
Yeah,
that's,
just a titch, just a
Mhm.
titch.
Mhm.
So the women that are listening, they're CEOs, they're founders, they manage people, they manage households, and they struggle
Mm,
with intimacy,
mm,
with being cared for. They're good teammates with their partners most of the time, but we're really missing. There's an unfulfilled
mhm,
piece in this one area of our lives. And what I've noticed is patterns and the way we do things with sex and intimacy translates into the way that we run our businesses and the way that we lead. So, tolerating, we seem to be
mhm,
really good tolerators, tolerating underfunctioning employees,
mhm.
tolerating, I don't know.
Average results.
Yes,
Mhm.
perfect way to
Diminishing
put
your
it.
own expectations, lowering your expectations because people don't meet them.
Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah.
I was like, how do I describe this? Exactly what you
Being
said.
afraid people will, especially from a team perspective, being afraid people will quit if you tell them the truth about what you expect.
Yes. Our abandonment wound coming up.
It's, yeah, most female entrepreneurs start a heart-centered business. So I've actually written about this. I think that most of us have a wound that we're trying to sort of work through our business. And if we don't understand that, we can be quite sort of negligent in the way that we interact with others and we don't think things through because we're trying to compensate for it. But I love what you do, and I see a lot of overlap, because I think that for a lot of women who run companies, who started companies and then run companies, they're really, really, really reluctant to allow people to support and care for them. And so that happens at home. I'm culprit A, exhibit A. I don't know, right?
This is why we're all listening, because
that's who we are.
Because we can't do it at work. We're not doing it in the bedroom either.
Yeah. And so that is a huge part of what I work on with my clients, is learning how to ask for, define, right? Hold people accountable to the support that you need and or have earned in your business, that you cannot do it all without that having consequence to you and everything about what you touch, right? So that core piece of allowing yourself to be vulnerable and ask for what you need is a real issue. And so it shows up in team, because we end up hiring people and we don't tell them what we want. We don't ask for what we want. We don't clarify it. And then we get really irritated when people don't deliver what we want. And then we become resentful of the relationship that we have with people on our team, which I'm sure this is a pattern in a personal relationship.
I was just going to, and this is a parallel in our partnerships.
What are we going to do, Jordin? All of us, we're just a hot mess. But my podcast is called Leadership is Feminine, because that I also want women to learn that you can be strong women and strong leaders, and also be that there is strength in vulnerability. There's strength in kindness. There's strength in grace, that we don't have to own all this male energy to achieve results. And but we don't have a lot of models for that. So it's not our fault that we do that, Yeah.
And I don't think it's our fault that we bring that into relationship either, because we don't have the model for what does that look like? How can I, and when women work with me, they're called to lead in a more feminine way. So now I know to send them to you. Because it's like, well, now what? Because I can't unsee this. Right. How can I transition my job, like how I lead, how I have these conversations with my children, to be more feminine? And I see it's the same with relationship. It's not modeled. We don't have a script for it. We almost think that if, I say surrender, let go, vulnerability, and like we're hanging on to our power suits, like our suit of armor, going, what? Like, I don't want to surrender. It sounds weak and it sounds anti-feminist.
Yeah. And it also is, I don't know. I think about things as like with bumpers. And I think we tend to be really all or nothing in our thinking. So we use the word surrender. Surrender is such a great example, because I've had my clients say to me, surrender, or my coaches that I've hired. I'm like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
Surrender. And I think that what happens is, like, people have, this is a silly sort of parallel, but hopefully it makes sense. Sometimes people are really afraid to hire people in their business because they're afraid of the investment without the results. So, and as you grow your business, we have to hire people at a higher level. We have to hire more sophisticated, more mature, more experienced thinkers and strategic thinkers in our company. And that requires that we make a bigger investment in their compensation, right? So a lot of the people I coach, though, have fear over saying, well, my goodness, if I hire her at $100,000, that's a big investment. What if I don't get what I want? But my perspective is always that, well, you're never going to pay someone $100,000 if you have built-in frameworks for expectations and accountability and how you're going to review their performance and all the things. You'll never get there. It's just that you don't trust yourself to hold them to those expectations. That makes you think you're going to lose money. You're going to waste the money. But if you build something into the relationship, if you have effective communication, if you have clear expectations, if you have ongoing communication, you will be able to identify very early either this is going to go well or it isn't. You're never going to get to that full amount. And so I have to imagine there's a similarity in the way that we clarify expectations mutually in personal relationships, right? That's that part of who we are as humans. For as much as we all interact together, it's amazing how little we do that with each other. What do you want? What do I want? Where's the middle? How do we make that happen for each of us? What am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? Like, those all seem like such obvious things that we should be able to say, and yet we're so afraid.
Yet they're not. And in relationship, we have roles, right? Mother role,
Mhm.
wife role, husband role. And both parties come into that relationship with preconceived notions about what it should be. And oftentimes, without conversation,
Yeah.
without expectation being set, it's people are not meeting the mind reading expectations because the conversation hasn't been had. Resentment starts building. Usually the overfunctioner, mainly us, starts picking up all the slack in all the areas so that it does still function, and we're suppressing our needs and our expectations in order to stay in that partnership. So yes, it's very similar. And I see, and I don't know if this translates to work, I'm teaching women, like, we're moving away from compromise and moving away from accepting less, because after years and years of you want this, I want this, let's meet in the middle, or the women that I work with, we're usually meeting like pretty way far on the other side. But when two people have the framework and tools and things to have a very vulnerable conversation about what they desire, and these two people love each other and care for each other, then something even greater than compromise happens. Do you think that would translate to work as well?
I do. I think that the paradigm of boss employer, right, is why so many women don't like being managers, because it feels very uncomfortable for them to be the boss, right? And we're using that framework that was built out of masculine leadership models that are thousands of years old, right?
They don't work for us.
No, they don't. And so what we do is either try and do it and we hate it and we feel really uncomfortable in it. And so then we have to shut off all of our empathy and our empathic sense because we're so uncomfortable with the role of being the boss and executing it in the way that we've watched other people do it. But we know we have to be the boss, so we have to show up this way. Or we're all the way over here, timid, not responding, passive, ignoring, avoiding, tolerating, all the things that you've also said, right? So we play in both spaces. And I believe that I love the way that you said that, because I like to think about team members as co-creators. And I think about the same thing in the relationship I have with my husband, right? We're creating a family, we're creating a relationship together. It's like a cocktail. It's not, I get this half and you get this half. It's, let's mix this and let's see what we come up together on. And when I think about my team as co-creators, that is a totally different approach, right? Now we're just making agreements. This is what you do. This is what I do. This is how these things are going to come together. We're making agreements together. And if you don't meet your agreement, it's not personal. It's just, you didn't meet the agreement.
You didn't meet the agreement.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. And if you keep not meeting agreements, then maybe this isn't the right place for you to co-create, and vice versa. But I think we just have to change. There's so much language that has to change about how we think about partnering with people to achieve outcomes that we want in the world and we want in our lives. So,
and we've seen, where these masculine paradigms have government, healthcare, like things are crumbling around us. They're not working.
No. And we're going to watch that for a little bit longer yet, because there's a lot of grasping to keep things right? The way that they are, it's always the most. I did a class a couple months ago called Leadership is Feminine, and it was the formula, Leadership is Feminine formula, and we did Facebook ads to drive people to it, and the only people that hated on it,
Was men?
women.
Oh.
So it's interesting because for as many of us are out there, right, really wanting to help women step into this new level of voice and new level of power and new level of grace that we all possess, there are even women who want to fight to keep men in the strong man role.
Mm.
And I am intrigued. They're clearly not my client and I wish them well. But I do think we're watching, it's such a transition of perspective, and it shifts the power base in all the things that you've mentioned. Education, everything is
Shifting.
uh-huh.
Yeah. And that just what's going on in the world, and you can almost feel
Yes.
the destabilization, feel the fear, and the
Yes.
people wanting to grasp onto it.
Yes.
And it's funny because now I'm assessing, for me, it's probably 50-50 men hating and women hating on my stuff, like negative comments. And the women, and it's sad. And again, you wish them well, but I have kids and I work, and how am I also supposed to have like a connected relationship and good sex? And it's just like, it is so shut off.
Yeah.
And it's so not even in their realm of awareness that they're like angry at me for suggesting that it's possible.
Right. Because it feels like another thing I have to do.
Yes. It's
Right.
another
Rather
item
than
on
an
the to-do list.
expression of how I feel, right? Because ultimately, at least that's what I think about intimacy. I could certainly work with you. I've been married 26 years. Like, I could use some help. But I think intimacy is just simply an expression of feeling, right? It's like it's a way that we can connect in a way that is not my brain having to figure it out, right? It's my limbic system having a play date.
Yes.
I don't know.
And when we think about it, and I've been polling more men and partners, and more men have been reaching out and talking about characteristics that they're attracted to in women. And this was interesting because I feel like this has been transitioning too. And it's been transitioning even more recently since the pandemic and everything. But when I was growing up, and the qualities that I thought strong, independent, takes no prisoners, like handles her shit herself, like I thought those were like the epitome of what I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up. And like, that's hard and rigid and individualistic and closed off. How do you take that into a relationship?
It's like a warrior.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you're conditioned, like,
Yeah.
run faster than everyone, get good like and that's how I was rewarded, and a lot of the women that I work with were rewarded. And then how do you balance that with mother, like
The
nurturer,
nurturer. Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
it feels like almost impossible, or you lived the first 25-30 years of your life that way, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, you can't have intimacy like this, like that. We need to open and soften. And so, speaking to more men and partners of the women that I work with to kind of see like what's their experience, what do they want, and all of those things. And sometimes that surface stuff will come up initially, right? Oh, she's strong and like all this stuff. But when we get a layer deeper, it's not about like, oh, it's the way she thinks or the way she solves problems. Like, that's not inherently the attraction. It's like her kindness and the way she is with the kids, or the way she moves, if she's ever still enough to like
Mhm.
let me witness her.
Mhm.
But that I even feel like is
Mhm.
transitioning,
Mhm.
like the identifiers or the like
That's lovely.
why
Yeah.
people would be attracted to other like
It's
people
interesting
in
as you're
partnership.
talking because I think the same thing is true about what people look for in a leader.
Mm,
They want someone who listens to them, who is kind, who is thoughtful, who creates an environment that's safe where people can be vulnerable. Like it's a very different, right? Where we normally would have said, I want to work for someone who, is a
yeah.
driver and listen, there's plenty of that out there still. So if that's what you want, you go get it. But I have been leading and managing people for 28 plus years. And I can tell you that my first foray into working in a company, I worked for a woman who was just a bully, bullish, mean, cut people down, very traditional, old school, right?
Leader.
Oh, it
Yeah.
was awful. Yeah. And so I said, I never want to do that. So I'm never going to be a boss. And then, of course, I got bored and I applied to be a manager and I worked for her. And I tried really hard to integrate the ways that I wanted to be. My mom had been a leader for my whole life, a single mom. So I had a lot of really great modeling. She always built lovely teams and people really stuck together. And so she had that naturally, I think, because she certainly didn't learn it from anybody. And but one day I had to fire a woman who was much older than I and had a 7-year-old son at the time. I was 26. And she was really upset. She didn't do her job. She got fired for a reason. But I totally cried. I cried. And this woman that I worked for said, you can't cry. You can't let this get to you. And I looked at her and I said, the day this doesn't get to me is the day I need to walk out because that woman is
Mm.
39 years old or however old she is. She has a 7-year-old son and now she doesn't have a job. And I am a human. Like it bothers me. Now, I probably don't want to bawl when I fire people. Like I could work on that part. But I really recognized over time, and then I ended up working for a guy who showed me that you could be totally nurturing, caring, kind, open, honest, transparent. And I was like, oh, that guy. And everybody loved him, right? And he was a dude. So he was already leading with his feminine energy, right? Very masculine guy. It wasn't like he was weak or anything. He got it. Like people want to feel connected to you. And so that's when I really took flight in my role as a leader is I allowed myself to do the things that I knew were innate to what people want in relationships, period. People want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be cared for. Um, and I think that's what happens in personal relationships. And that's where a lot of the breakdown is. And I was saying to you with the pre show discussion, right? Like I've been married a long time and it just gets to be like you just start taking care of yourself, especially when you got 3 kids. Like
And
they're the
work
ones,
and
yeah, like, listen, I'm good. Good night. Right.
yeah.
And so it's just it gets to be taught. It's just that to me is where I think intimacy is, especially on the backside of a relationship for us. And that's what we're figuring out because we really did just immerse ourselves in raising kids and building a home. And we have a very loving family. I'm very happy with our family. But we're now going to be this couple again with our kids leaving. And we both realized like, oh, who who are we? Right. So we've started going on dates. So we've started doing some things that are really fun. Like, because we used to have so much fun before we had kids. And then we kind of forgot about that part for a long time.
And I'm sure so many people
Yeah.
listening are nodding in
Yeah.
agreement because it's a lot
Yeah.
in parenting in mom and dad role. And that's
Mm-hmm.
another full-time job on
Mm-hmm.
top of our full-time job. And then where does like husband and wife, where does lovers fit? And I love that you're going on dates. And because at that point, sometimes people start to wonder, like, is this the right person for me?
Yeah. And we had, I think that's the conversation a lot of people don't want to have. And, like from my perspective and his perspective, because we did talk about it, like, I'm like, I don't have any interest in not being married. I love you. I want to be with you. And I also think this is sort of exciting, but we have to be able to say things to each other that we haven't said for the last however many years, just so we can say them, not like because you're bad or you're mean or you're not a good person. Like we just have both ignored parts of what are important to us just to kind of get through our day, I think. But you talked about difficult conversations, and I think these are some of the most difficult conversations to have with someone that theoretically you're the closest to.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
in, I think intimate relationship is like a magnet and it draws out our
Mm,
shit, like
mhm.
our trauma, our
Yes.
everything, our wounding. And I almost find that we're getting it together as leaders, as employers. Like we're better at setting the boundaries. We're better at the vulnerable conversations. We're saying the hard things. And then the person that we've been married to for decades,
Mhm.
it's like
You
we're
shut it off.
gagged. It's so
Yes.
hard. And
Mhm.
we do almost, I teach that like pleasure is a dial, and a lot of people
Mm,
just they've turned it down, they've turned it
mhm,
off for
mhm,
other things.
mhm,
And then at some point they'll get to an inflection point, whether it's like, hey, the kids are grown and they're moving out, and well, now what?
mhm,
Or you know, just different transitions or things draw it out, and it's a matter of and I look at it as an extremely exciting time because
mhm.
you can work on turning that back up together,
Together. Yeah.
and it can be fun and fulfilling, and it's really amazing because we have the team foundation. You have the
Mm,
connection, you have the
mhm,
oxytocin.
mhm,
Now we just need to teach you guys how to add the pleasure, the excitement, the like the
mhm,
dopamine back.
mhm,
And when you can do that in a relationship that already feels safe and you are a good team,
mhm.
that's the good
So
stuff.
powerful. Yeah. I think this is sort of interesting because I've had some girlfriends who have gotten divorced sort of in their later 40s, right? Early 50s. And um there's a parallel with them with also women who run businesses for a long time too, right? So most of my clients tend to have been in business for 5, 8+ years, and they're all running multiple $1 million businesses. And so it's like we have to rebirth parts of ourselves kind of regularly because a business requires that as well. And one of the things that I notice, and I notice this in myself in my relationship with my husband right now, is that, so follow me because I know this might be a little confusing, but I do think it makes sense. Is that when I was 23 and I met my husband, there were things I wanted, right?
Yes.
And that 23-year-old self was very clear about what she wanted. And she created the version of me that I am, right? So now I'm a 53-year-old me. But in the moments when I am not sure what I want, I often leverage or try and return to the way that I wanted when I was young. So I see women do this in their business. I see women do this in their lives. And we try and connect back to wants that we once wanted.
Yes.
But I don't want them anymore because I have them. And I also don't want to create what I want from the version of myself that I was when I was in my 20s. I need to understand who I am today. And she wants different things. And because I've been so busy with kids and so busy with a business and so busy just being a person functioning to pay my mortgage and make the 4 million decisions I make in a day, I don't know what I want. And I think we have to teach ourselves a lot more about how to know more about what this version of myself wants to create my 83-year-old self, right? Yeah. So it's like wanting from a position of today rather than wanting. So I think that's what happens in relationships too, because I watch people who got divorced, they start dating people that they would have dated when they were 22. And they're like, I'm like, what are you doing? This guy does not have a job. What are you doing? What are you doing? Right? But he's hot.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, when
23-year-old you would have
right.
loved it.
Yes, exactly. What is, look at, you're like this mature, successful, sophisticated woman. What are you doing? And so it's so it happens like in a nanosecond. And so I think the same thing is true for me now. I'm like, okay, what does intimacy even mean to me as this woman that I am today? Because I don't think it's the same thing that it did when I was 23. In fact,
No,
I know
it's
it isn't.
not.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
people constantly try and go back to what it was at the
Yeah.
beginning, and they're chasing that new relationship
Mm,
dopamine cocktail that we had, but
mm,
so much is different. We're
mhm,
different. Our bodies are different. Our hormones are different. So,
mhm,
what we desired and what turned us on and turned us off and what we thought we wanted is
mm,
very, very different. And feminine nature
mm,
is cyclical, and we birth
mm,
things and we desire new things, and we birth that thing. So to have a different framework for intimacy and connection is so important, and it's what
mhm,
I teach, because if we could approach long intimacy and long-term relationship like that, letting our
mhm,
feminine desire lead,
mhm,
then we wouldn't have to turn it off, or it would be the constant
mhm,
cycle or rebirth, however you want to look at it. And then the newness is built in.
mm,
The you having a feminine desire, your man protecting and providing it for you, like just it just
mhm,
flows and it just
mhm,
works.
mhm.
But it goes against everything like we've
Right.
been taught about relationships.
Yeah. Well, and just change in general is so uncomfortable, and it's just such an interesting quagmire,
Yeah, and you wanna
right?
talk about a difficult conversation to go to your partner and just say, like, "I've faked every orgasm I've ever had," or, you know,
Yeah.
"I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I'm unfulfilled." Like
Yeah.
that those are hard conversations to have.
Yeah. And yet there's so much on the other side, right?
Yes.
It's I mean, I don't deal in intimacy, but I deal in people telling people, firing people who they haven't been able to fire, right? Like their best friend or their husband or their sister or the person who's worked for them for 22 years. All
Mm.
the things, right? And it never fails. Someone just texted me a couple weeks ago. I finally fired this person that I've been wanting to fire. She's been on fire for 2 years. Finally fired her. She's like, I feel so free. And then she said, I can't believe the creativity that I'm having now that she's gone. And so it's this, I just said this to my client right before this podcast. I said, it's amazing what we will do to avoid 2 minutes of discomfort and what could be on the other side of it, right? Like what could be on the other side of two sentences coming out of your mouth. It's amazing when you simplify it that way. And and I think from a leadership perspective, that's what to me this is all about, is like, can you, the only person you ever really need to invest in to have a thriving company is yourself. If you can learn how to say what needs to be said, bring the people in, identify the talent, do the things, if you can let go, if you can allow mistakes, if you can develop a belief that everything is possible through the leveraging of other people and their talents, everything that you need is yours. And I'm sure there's a similarity to a thriving relationship with anyone begins with the one you have with yourself, right? How honest you are with yourself Yeah.
Yeah, and identifying those desires and things that you said, like allowing mistakes, and
Mhm.
because that's, you can't be a perfectionist and have a great intimate
No.
relationship in it or out of the bedroom.
Yeah. It's
You
a great point.
can't be controlling or micromanaging or like any of our CEO,
I don't know what
skills.
you're talking about. I don't know what even those words mean.
Yeah. Or we can't take our coach or our clinician into the bedroom, and those are
Yeah.
all those feminine characteristics lead us to
Mm.
something so beautiful.
Mhm.
And when we have to get vulnerable and we have to open up
Mhm.
and really really let someone in
Mhm.
and really be vulnerable asking for what we want. And when it comes to
Mhm.
intimacy, it can be, especially if it's been shut down for years, like
Yeah. It's
that is
awkward. Yeah.
it's awkward and uncomfortable. And I can see, like, it's probably the parallels, like we're working on the tools to figure out what it is and how to have those conversations in a way that leaves both parties connected at the end and not.
Well, I can tell you from a difficult conversations perspective, because this is something we do a lot, and I wonder what their correlation is and what you're talking about. One of the biggest barriers to successful difficult conversations is the way that we identify what other people do. What we do is we label people. We label people and we label their behavior through our own lens. So I might say, using a team example, you were being really dismissive. You were being very arrogant. I noticed in the meeting today, you were really rude. Um, the outfit you've been wearing to work is very unprofessional. So, what I'm doing is I'm labeling something that I witnessed in another person, but I'm labeling them using my interpretation of what I experienced: rude, arrogant, dismissive, unprofessional. That's my label. People don't wake up and think, I can't wait to be rude today. I'm going to be really arrogant in that meeting, right? That's not how they would label their behavior. So, what we've really recognized with difficult conversations is we always have to root them in evidence, in facts, right? So, when you said this today, you rolled your eyes in the meeting today. Can you tell me what you were thinking? You asked for XYZ. I need to understand what your intention was. What were you? So, I'm going to let someone else label their own behavior. I'm not going to assign it, because as soon as I assign a label, right? Like, you're really uncaring. You don't care about me. You're really selfish. I can imagine people say that about intimacy, right? Like, that's really,
Yes.
you're selfish. That's a label that I'm assigning. And most people get defensive if you tell them that they're selfish. So instead, we have to say, what actually happened? This is what
What's the
happened.
facts?
What's the fact? And then let them tell you why they were involved in or whatever happened. And that, so we can't ever commit that people will feel like whole at the end of a conversation, because that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is how I show up. But I always like to teach leaders that your role is not to label people's behavior, it's to invite them in to define their own, and then to explain to them how the behavior is not aligned with whatever agreement or expectation that you have all have made. That's how we do difficult
I
conversations.
love that.
Yeah.
And they can feel heard.
Yeah. And you can say what you need to without honestly insulting people. Like, it's unnecessary to label behavior, because it's never going to be what they would choose.
Right. And then they're defensive, their
Yeah.
nervous system, like they're in fight or flight.
Yep.
And then where does that ever go well?
Usually doesn't.
Yeah, if somebody's triggered. But if you're allowing them in and inviting them to be a co-creator in that
Yes.
difficult conversation, I like it.
Yeah. So facts are always forward. And then we can play with, like, well, here's what okay, well, I rolled my eyes because this. Okay, well, when you rolled your eyes, this is all I had. This is all I saw. I don't know why you rolled your eyes. All I saw was the behavior because that's all we
Right.
ever see from other people, right? We can't open up their brains and see what their thoughts are. And so we have
Exactly.
to just be so, and in relationships of any kind, assumptions are just tragically awful to make because we lose so much in our lives when we make assumptions. And sometimes that's all that happens is one assumption and a relationship's over.
And I see assumptions made, and yeah, the shutdown,
Mm-hmm.
like it's almost instant. And then you're
Instant.
operating that like that's the truth. You're operating from, and it could be a false data point.
Any assumption is. The
Yeah.
only actual data we ever have is facts. The words that people say, the behaviors, the things they do with their body, right? Those are provable. Those are things that are real.
Hmm.
Everything else is the way that we define it and is the story that we tell about it. And as a leader, it's critical that you're aware of that because you have so much more impact. That's why I do what I do, because one leader is affecting 5, 10, 200, 2,000 people. There's a responsibility there. We can't be errant with our assumptions.
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense. And there is so many parallels
Yeah.
to intimacy. And for the super women listening that want to go and take action on this and bring it into their relationship, which it will work, right? Like
Mhm.
when you didn't load the dishwasher like you said you would,
Yeah.
um, it would work. But where the trouble comes in is if we're always the one leading those conversations, or
I
like
agree
we're
with that.
always in our leader.
Yep.
Because then the balance is off.
Yeah.
It feels like you're in a relationship with your employee.
Yeah. And I know that I've had people that I used to work with who said they like of their partner, like I feel like I'm one of his team members sometimes when he comes home or vice versa. And yeah, I mean that is just human behavior. And it's like there's no right answer other than what works in your relationship because the fact could ultimately be, hey, over the last 2 weeks, I've been the only one who's addressed the following things in our agreements, right? Why am I the only one who's addressing them? Like even that could be a thing that you talk about, right? And I do think I think that that's the fine balance is expectation. I say to my clients all the time, there's no such thing as too high of an expectation. There's only expectations that haven't been properly discussed or set.
Yes.
And most of the things that we really want from people, we don't tell them.
It's so true,
Yeah.
especially in intimacy.
Yeah.
And I go through this process like, what do you desire? Because
Yeah.
what we've been accepting or tolerating is usually a little crumb of what we really want.
Right.
And we have to go through like the framework of shame, like cultural shame and our upbringing, and what even is there to explore, because a lot of us have never been given the permission or never taken the time to prioritize this area of our
Mm-hmm.
lives. So there's this just whole process of figuring out, what is it,
Mm-hmm.
what is the expectation, what is the desire, what do I want?
Mm.
And then it's like, oh, now we have to start having these difficult conversations
Yes,
about
I have
it.
to
And
talk about it. I don't want to. I'll just take care of it myself.
yeah, exactly. I'll just do it.
I'll just do it. It's fine. It's fine. I'll just do it. It's dumb anyway. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
It's just
Or, oh
dumb.
yeah, I don't need that.
It's not
I
a
don't
big
need,
deal.
I'm just gonna book us a vacation, or I'm gonna focus on like let's double our Q2 goals instead or
Yes, let's do
something.
that. We'll buffer with business.
Yes.
Allegedly, people do that.
Yeah, not us, right?
No, no, none of those things. Buffering.
Well, Kris, thank you so much for being here, for your insight. I think there's going to be a lot of aha moments for the listeners with the parallels between how we lead and how we show up in intimate relationship. Tell us, how do we find you? You got anything exciting going on?
I always have things going on. So let's see. The best way to find me is krisplachy.com is my website. You'll find my podcast there. If we're running anything and it's available or to notice, you'll see that there. The program that we run is called How to CEO, and it's a 12-week long live training for women who run their own businesses. And then, we have a lot of little things on the website. We have a CEO boutique, which I'm super excited about, which is some digital resources for women too. So if you don't have time to do a lot, but you want like a download or a couple classes, digital courses, you can do that too. But as is the case for everyone who runs a business, it's always evolving and taking new shape. And so I'm excited about 2023 and all the things that are to come. So it's been lovely to chat with you and know you.
Yes, thank you. And we will link that in the show notes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Have a great week, everybody.
If you like what you heard in this episode, leave me a rating. Your support helps me get discovered by more women like you. Together, we can change the conversation around women's sexual health and pleasure for you, your partners, and generations to come.